Hey everybody, it's Aaron here with Robert and RJ to talk about season 3 of The Mandalorian here at Get Your Geek On.
This is the way.
Yeah, we're here. RJ, thank you so much for joining us. RJ of the NerdyBrew. Make sure and check out his channel. He has a lot of great stuff on there. But we are getting into this new season, season 3 on Disney Plus, bringing back all our old favorites. We've got Din Djarin, we've got Grogu, we've got Bo-Katan, we've got the Armorer, and Paz Vizsla and Moff Gideon and a bunch of rebel people and also random people on Coruscant. This season went all over the place, and we are going to talk about what we liked and what we didn't like. And so without further ado, RJ, just drop a line about where people can find you real quick, and we'll hit it at the end too, but make sure that, introduce yourself.
I'm RJ of the NerdyBrew. You can go over there to my YouTube channel. I have a lot of good stuff over there that talks about nerd content, things within the movie and TV space, and also some social concepts involved in that too. Go over there. That's where I'm at the NerdyBrew.
All right. So let's get into season 3, The Mandalorian. Of course, season 2 ended with, a very emotionally charged departure of Grogu and Armando. They had to say goodbyes. He was going off to do Jedi training. And then I hope you watched the Book of Boba Fett, because that is not where season 3 picked up. So that is, I want to just say, let's start talking about the plot, the structure, and maybe the themes of this season and what we liked and what we didn't like. As you can tell, that was the first thing I didn't like, is that we had to watch a different show to catch up on the journey of our characters. That didn't make sense to me. And really, I felt like the majority of this season, we didn't need them to be together. That wasn't part of the story they were telling. And I feel like the ending, and this is a spoiler review, the ending of the two of them kind of, the official adoption of Grogu. Now you're not just in my care, you're not just a foundling, but I'm going to adopt you. You are now my son. I'm taking you into my family. I just feel like that would have hit so much harder if we had spent the season apart, and then that had been building, that they needed to be together, that they needed each other, and we came together, in the final episode or two, and then he makes that choice. I just felt like it would have hit so much stronger, and I really felt like, I don't know, Grogu especially just feels very wasted this season. I didn't know why he was in most of the episodes. That's my feeling on kind of the overall structure and plot. And I see you guys nodding along, so it sounds like you might agree with me.
It was whenever we needed him to use the Force to help somebody. That was the only reason he was there. Literally.
He only did it a couple times.
That's all they needed.
He went off to Bo-Katan to save Mando in episode 2 or whatever. And then he doesn't do anything of importance until the finale, in my opinion. I don't know, RJ?
I fully agree.
I mean, I can't think of a good spot either. That's what I'm trying to think.
Everything that you said was spot on. Grogu was just a marketing tool this entire season, just to say that Grogu exists and he's here.
They're making up for not being able to market him before the series premiered, because he was a big secret in season 1. And so they're making up for it now by just including him in episodes he doesn't need to be in. And it would have been so great, even just to check in for a few minutes on Jedi training, every few episodes, something like that, and show him struggling with, letting go. Show him, that's kind of, those are very strong themes in Jedi training, is can you let go of the past? Can you let go of your attachments? Can you do those types of things? So having him make the same choice that Luke made, by the way, which was, I'm going to go be with my friends. I'm going to go save my friends. And having Grogu arrive at that same point as Luke is training him, I feel like that would have been, George Lucas, it all rhymes. That was such an opportunity that I feel like they did not take advantage of.
I think the problem, you hit everything you said, like RJ said, is spot on. I think the problem is Boba Fett. That we literally threw Mando and Grogu in there and basically went from, hey, this is season of Boba Fett. No. This is 2.5 of Mandalorian. And like you said, there was no connection. We didn't get this drawn out in season 3. Maybe like the first half could have been this drawn out thing while Moff Gideon is like building his army, building his empire over in his little corner. And then the second half is dealing with now a stronger Moff Gideon because now he has those troopers, he has those resources on his side.
Man,
but
I gotta tell you, that's another thing that the structure again, we should have seen him like on Mandalore. Like when Mando came to Mandalore, we should have almost had like a pan over like to Moff Gideon, like, is he gonna discover my secret base here? And like, no, they don't. But we know that he's there. And so we know, like, oh, this is building towards something. This is building towards the Mandalorians wanting to go take back Mandalore. And they don't know they're walking into an Imperial, like, trap. Like, that would have, I just felt like it would have been so much stronger than, and he's been here. I don't know.
For me, I think to piggyback off of that, Moff Gideon should have been a through line through the entire season. He should have been with the New Republic in custody. They should have been preparing his trial. We should have seen that escape with the new stormtroopers that he had. All it is because it was just thrown at us in the last 2 episodes. So to know that he was still a looming threat and to continue those threads that they planted throughout the season, we should have seen more of them. Just like you said, like we should have still seen Grogu with Luke just a couple of times, but he's just already there and he's not adding any significance to the show.
And the episode on Coruscant, I didn't dislike it. Like I liked everything that was happening, but we didn't need it for this show. Like, why did we need to follow Dr. Pershing for 30 minutes when he never comes back? We see his brain get fried and he never comes back. And then it's just they drop a line that, oh, you were working with Dr. Pershing on cloning technology. We did not need 30 minutes of Dr.
You know
Pershing.
why?
Right.
You know why? Because it is context for their sequel trilogy. They have to show why the New Republic was such trash. And it's retroactively trying to, throw those things in there, but like nobody cares. I don't care.
It really is like this show, especially this season, and then like what the Bad Batch was doing, they're like, oh, we got to explain all the cloning stuff that led into somehow Palpatine returned, which everyone hated. And it's like, you know what? Let me just hate that. I don't need you to spend all this time justifying it. It was terrible at the time. It can still be terrible. You don't need to justify it. It was just bad. It was a bad decision. It's a bad moment in what I think is a bad movie. And like, just let it go. Like, we don't need to spend all this time. Like, it is very frustrating.
It really was. I mean, I liked, there was a couple episodes I liked. I mean, I know we kind of been bashing on things. I want to kind of shift focus though. So like the episode, even though with the doctor, the clone guy, it was terrible, but it had a good potential. I'm gonna start with that one. It had good potential to be a great episode. I also didn't like the other character, the girl's character. I can't remember her name in it.
The actress is Katie O'Brien, but I don't.
Katie O'Brien. Yeah, we'll go with Katie. Her character. I like her character, and I really actually wanted a little bit more to understand why she is the way she is, kind of thing. Like, why is she?
Because she's evil. She's an Imperial.
But what makes you stay like, some guys got to get a paycheck somewhere. Some of these guys that are dying, you're just like, I'm just here for a paycheck, Like, I just want to know more about that. Like, that episode, watching it, though, I think I even told you, Robert, I had such strong hopes for that one, because this is more like the espionage. They're like, who's who on what side, and I love that stuff.
It was the Andor episode.
Yeah, basically. And
then they didn't take it anywhere.
And it fell short, but it was a good episode overall. And I think for this show itself, for me, as probably the furthest fan away from Star Wars out of the three of us, the series, it was not one that I think me and you talked about, Robert. I didn't watch it week to week. I waited like 3 or 4 weeks. And when you text me like, hey, don't forget we have to record, I'm like, oh yeah, watching 3 or 4 episodes at once. And I enjoyed it that way, like binging it, because it was like, okay, those slower moments, those slower episodes, I got through them really quick. I didn't have to sit here and wait, next week, what's going to happen? And I think for this show, it's almost one of those, they should have just done it as a binge instead. But I did like that now I feel like Star Wars is taken from Halo. and they're stealing from us. And I'm saying this right now. Star Wars, stop stealing from Halo. ODST, Orbital Drop Shock Troopers, are what the freaking Mandalorians were in this episode. These episodes. All of like, where's their drop pods? Because these are just ODST. That's all they are. But that was cool. Like, we got to see that. We got to see them fight and got to see like the action part. Those last couple episodes were cool. I enjoyed those because there was more action. This is what, to me, the Mandalorians are. They're bounty hunters. They're fighters. They're ready to, go in there and boots to the ground and, fight. They don't go up in space and fight. Even she's like, they're going to beat us in space. Just let's fight down here. We got them on the ground. And I like that comment. What?
So, I'm just laughing about the ridiculousness of the armorer fighting with like her armoring tools while everyone else has like blasters and stuff. And I'm like, come on, guys. Like this doesn't make sense. But
I'm sorry, I'd be the one stormtrooper up there be like, oh, she hit that hurt. I'm out. Like, you know what? Like, this chick's either really badass or really crazy.
It's like it's like why is someone hitting me with a hammer? What is happening?
Ow.
But let's talk. I think I liked where the show ended up. I liked where Grogu and Din ended up. I liked where the Mandalorians ended up. I liked like where we resolved things at the end of season 3. I did feel like this is a good ending place for these 3 seasons that we've gotten. Again, I had quite a few problems with how we got there. This season in particular felt very uneven. And also there was just a lot of, to me, wasted potential and wasted space. Like focusing on Dr. Pershing instead of Moff Gideon makes no sense to me. As you said, RJ, he should have been a looming threat this whole time. We should have been, hearing about him. We should have had a lot going on with Moff Gideon. And instead we got 30 minutes of Dr. Pershing. And it's not that I don't like the Dr. Pershing stuff. It's just, I don't think that was the time it was, we're spending our resources in the wrong area. Like we only have a finite amount of time. We should have spent it on, storylines that I feel like were more impactful. And I think this is kind of indicative of a lot of pop culture stuff now, is they really try and like, we're going to throw a twist at you. We're going to hide something. We're going to, and it's like, we all knew Moff Gideon was still going to be the big bad of this season. And I don't think we needed to hide him for 6 episodes. Again, by the time we got to him, all of his stuff was really good. The stuff with the Shadow Council I really liked. The stuff with his base being on, man. Like the stuff, especially at the end of episode 7, where he's like taunting Bo-Katan. Like that stuff is all like, I'm enjoying all of that. And I was also just going, I want Giancarlo Esposito in this whole, like I want him in the whole season. Like, why do I only get him in 2 episodes?
With you bringing up the Shadow Council, when he was walking around and like everybody is like the hologram and it's stationary, but he's like walking and talking and spinning around. And I'm like, I wonder how that looks to them.
Yeah, that's always been a little bit of problem with Star Wars hologram technology, is like if you're watching the hologram, they're just completely stationary, but you get to walk around and do your stuff. Yeah. Okay, let's transition. Let's talk just about like our characters. So standout characters or characters we were disappointed in for this season. RJ, we'll start with you.
Yeah, actually, I'm kind of like the outlier compared to everybody else. Like, I like Bo-Katan. I like the story that they did for Bo-Katan. I'm not crazy about her, even from like the Clone Wars and Rebels. She's just always been a supporting character. But the fact that they put her in the forefront this season, I wasn't bothered by that. Because there's been interviews and whatnot, but they said the Mandalorian is a title. So she happens to be a Mandalorian.
Not in this show. There are several characters that when they say the Mandalorian, they mean Din Djarin.
Yeah, they mean Din, but
where's the Mandalorian? Which one?
But for the ones outside looking in, the title could be applied to who is a Mandalorian.
Sure.
I was disappointed in Grogu. As I said, he was just a prop for the season where he didn't need to be. And I mean, I'm following you guys' lead, but Lizzo and Jack Black were what's the word I'm trying to look for? They were just really off-putting because I know who they are.
Tim Meadows in the previous episode as well. the three of them just really, they pulled me out. Like,
Yes.
normally, and that's part of one of Star Wars' strength historically is like, they get people that you've never seen before. Daisy Ridley, we've never seen her before.
Right.
And so it's like, man, who is it? And you just buy in immediately. This is Star Wars. And with those characters in particular that you mentioned, those actors, it's like, I'm looking at Jack Black and I'm like, is he going to break out into song? Like, is he going to right? Like, it's just, it doesn't feel like Star Wars. And that really threw me off. I do want to mention Bo-Katan, and I want to ask Aaron a question because, like, RJ, you and me, we've seen Clone Wars, we've seen Rebels, we've seen Bo-Katan, being in Star Wars content for 15 years. Aaron has not. And so I'm asking you, Aaron, did you feel like you knew enough of who she was and you got enough information to really follow her and be invested in what was going on with her? Or is that something that RJ and I are pulling in from our other series?
I feel like y'all might be pulling it from the other series because for me, I like the character. I want to know more now. I want to know more about her. I think the actress was perfect for her. I liked her attitude in the beginning of that nonchalant, like, get the heck off my planet kind of thing to, okay, I'm going to leave these people. I liked her growth, but I want to know more. Like, to me, what's the whole point of the Darksaber? What's, we've talked about that before when it first came out. What's the big deal with these two different factions of Mandalorians? The whole, this is the way in the mask and the ones that don't have it. Like, that all throws me off. Like, I want to know more. And then at the same time,
we all want to know more about that one because that stuff that's not in the other supplemental material. That is new to Mandalorian. The whole, like, this is the way. That's never been in anything else. But that's why I want more of her. I want to know her backstory. I was worried about that because as I was watching it, I've been doing a rewatch of Clone Wars and I just started a rewatch of Rebels as well. And so, like, I was like refreshing myself on Bo-Katan, and at the same time I was watching this season and going like, they really haven't explained her backstory, and you kind of get it in pieces. And by the end, of course, you hear her talk about what happened in the Night of a Thousand Tears and those pieces. And I thought those were really good pieces, and it was very powerful to get that context from her. But I just felt like this show didn't do a great job of establishing that she feels like a failure because she's failed multiple times. Like, this is not just like, oh, I feel like I suck. It's like, no, there's evidence that this has not worked out well for you. And so her continuing to push for it, I think would have been stronger if we knew that going in.
Yeah, they didn't bring up the fact that she was with Death Watch and she was with Path Vizsla, and they didn't bring up that context for, new viewers or people like Aaron to know that she had this long history. There wasn't even a line mentioned that she was like, I was around with Darth Maul, or I was around with Paz Vizsla. I was related to the guy who died. We saved his son or whatever. Like, that, she never mentioned that for the crossing of the content.
Yeah, I think that would have been, again, we get the armorer saying she can walk in both worlds, and you're like, does the armorer know that she used to be Death Watch? Like, why is the armorer so quick to allow this, this from Bo-Katan? Like, we might know because we know Bo-Katan's full history, but, as a new viewer to The Mandalorian, maybe not. But I did like what Katie Sackhoff brought to the role. I thought, the physicality, and this is something I really appreciate. Her and the other Mandalorians that are part of her old group, so Axe and I can't remember the Sasha Banks character's name. They all fight so differently than all the rest of the Mandalorians. I love the way they use their jetpacks and the way they use it. Like, you can tell they have been trained as warriors, and like, that is a very different fighting style than this covert that is, yes, they do train and they do fight, but they have a very different fighting style. And so, I really appreciate that we see that difference in the way, again, that they like use their jetpacks either to, get over obstacles or launch an attack or like those different things. It's so cool. And I love watching that action. Speaking of the jetpacks, they set up in an early episode that like they run out of fuel and then that didn't come back at all in the finale. I was like, why do they have so much fuel that they can just fly around this whole time? Like no one explained it. Again, just another plot thing that I just felt like, what is happening with this? I have to say, you mentioned, being disappointed in Grogu. I was disappointed in Din as well.
He got sidelined.
He got sidelined, and also I felt like his character was all over the place. Like his feeling on droids just kind of was like it shifted from episode to episode. I was like, I don't understand what's going on. Like, and Star Wars' whole attitude towards droids has always been really weird, because some characters view them as like these are sentient creatures, and others as like these are tools and slaves. And so like turning IG-11 into a vehicle, a mindless like vehicle for Grogu, it's like it's cool in concept, and I like Grogu being able to walk around, but then it's like that he was a person. Like he's like, aren't we supposed, like that feels like you just grab somebody's corpse on your weekend at Bernieing this thing. Like this is I don't feel comfortable with this.
Yeah,
because of the way you treated it.
Oh, sorry about that. My whole thing about the IG units that they had in this season, he got blown to smithereens in season 1.
He got destroyed.
Like now you got the statue pieces of him. Like, no, he was obliterated. Like, there should be only like nuts of this man. Like, I don't get it.
That was what the statue were just his nuts.
These nuts.
I mean, you guys are right though. They felt like they were sidelined, both of these characters. I mean, I just want to take one quick step back too with Bo-Katan, because I was going to ask you guys as you were talking about it. So I know they drop it a little bit here and there in sentences, like, oh, Moff Gideon, I had to give him the Darksaber because of all this. And so if she gave him the Darksaber, does that mean like everything was over, Mandalorian's dead, and we surrender, we're our army? Like, I didn't get all that. And then on top of that,
it's a symbol.
Is there more stuff to it? Like, is there more backstory that I missed about all that fighting and war with him? Okay.
Yes, you missed a lot.
Okay.
There's a lot of lore wrapped up with the Darksaber, and I don't know that we need to get into it.
No, yeah.
Review.
I want to know, is it backstory stuff that I don't have that you guys do,
Yes.
But yeah, I think Grogu was definitely the worst character, I think, right now, unfortunately for me, because he was so sidebarred, and it was literally, why are you here? We might need someone to use the Force once in a while. Oh, here we go. Yep, use that Force. Okay, and we're done. The other character, I think I agree with you on Din. He's pushed to the side. But again, someone that I'm going to go back to, I liked her, was the other Imperial officer, the female one, again, Katie, because I think she could have brought more to the table. I would love to see it too, that yes, maybe she's helping Gideon and trying to get him up there, but what if it's like secretly she's trying to kill him so she could move up too? Like, I want to see her be like this cold-blooded assassin kind of like behind the scenes character, and we didn't get enough of that. We got her a couple episodes, and then it's like, where is she? She's still stuck on that planet? She didn't leave? What?
Yeah, and just building off that, I mean, like, that's part of what I liked about the Shadow Council, is that you can tell each one of these guys would stab every single other one in the back for their own advancement. And like that is obviously one of the downfalls of the structure that the Emperor set up, which is very much the Sith structure, which is, if you can take down the person that's ahead of you, then you will take their place and their power. And if you get put down, then I guess you just weren't ready to do it. But you should always be trying to take down the person in front, ahead of you. And I think that, that's part of the downfall of the emperors and the empires, that they don't work together. They're all just in it for themselves and that ambition that they have. I will say one other character that we haven't mentioned that I want to is Paz Vizsla, because where he is and really he got, it's so weird because again, he had like this big action sequence in the Book of Boba Fett. Him and Mando got into a fight over the Darksaber that was like a really good emotional fight that should have been in this season. Because by the time like we get to him, and I know like I think they shot it almost to be like a twist, but when he stands up to be like, we need to go help Navarro with the pirates. Like I totally saw it coming that he was going to side with Mando.
Oh yeah.
But it was also like, if we had had that history of his fight with Mando at the beginning of this season and that through line, and it hadn't been more than a year ago in an entirely different show, I feel like that just would have hit so much harder of him, like, you know, his honor and loyalty, and that's what he believes in, and that's what he's going to do. And then he got the hero's death. His was really the only impactful death outside of Moff Gideon at the end of this show. And, you know, Moff Gideon, we didn't see a body, so I don't know.
No one's dead unless you see a body.
He might still
even
show
then,
up. There might be a clone of him somewhere else. Who knows? I'm not saying we're done with Giancarlo Esposito, but
I hope not. He's such a good
I
actor.
really liked Paz Vizsla and his arc in this, and I felt like him and Bo-Katan were maybe the only two characters that really got an arc in this whole season. And I thought they both worked really well. Everyone else kind of feels like they're the same at the beginning as they are at the end, is kind of how I felt. But I really liked his character and the way he went out. And just every time he like dropped down with that big old Gatling gun blaster, I was like, this is awesome.
Okay, so I do have a question because you mentioned the clones, you know, like it could be a clone of Moth out there somewhere. And I might hit a sore button with Star Wars fans with this one. So you can inject the Force into people? The whole midi-chlorian thing? Like, I didn't get that whole part.
So that is, I mean, that is definitely something where that's never been a thing, but clearly it's something that they are weaving into these stories because it came into the sequel trilogy. Because the Emperor has a clone body that has the Force, which has never been satisfactorily explained. So now they're using these shows to explain it. So yeah.
So we take the midi-chlorians out of somebody, inject them into somebody else.
I don't know. Again,
that was so weird.
It doesn't necessarily make sense. But I don't know. Any other characters that you guys want to highlight that we haven't talked about yet?
R5, yeah, he was so cool. I like R5.
Yeah, R5 was great.
Do you know the history of R5?
He does not.
He has no clue.
Nope. Just that he was scared of little robots that came up to him. And
R5 is in the original movie of Star Wars. He was the droid that Luke's uncle originally was going to buy before he had a little experience. And then there's been legend stories about he's actually a Force sensitive droid who did that on purpose because he knew that R2-D2 needed to be with Luke Skywalker. It's like this whole thing, which is totally ridiculous. But I did love R5 coming in. And the relationship and him doing stuff. The whole mouse droid thing in the finale was fun. I enjoyed that.
They just like, what were they gonna do? Like poke him to death or something?
Yeah, I don't know. Like the one running off to get like 5 other mouse droids made no sense to me. I was like, go get somebody that can actually do something. But I like. So
they're the sand people, basically. Those little robots. They're just sand people.
Yeah, mouse droids. I really thought he had a great character arc. Even knowing he's from A New Hope, so where he ended up in this show, he was a standout supporting cast. I
gotta say though, in the finale, he uses his boosters and he flies down to a platform, and then he looks over the platform and is like, "I'm nervous." I'm like, "You just flew." Like,
Look, maybe it didn't dawn on him. He's like, "Man, that was pretty high up. Crap, man, I made that. I'm good.
I don't know.
The other thing, though, I felt like Din was a complete jerk to him when he was like, I don't understand binary. And then he sends him the map. Oh, cool. I know you sent me the map. Like, I don't know you sent it. Like,
but now that we're talking about it, that's what I wanted to bring up is that R5 should have been in the place of where Grogu was this entire season. While Grogu was off with Luke, R5 could have been the substitute on their adventures. Yes. Yeah, that's the word for it. Definitely.
Absolutely.
That would have worked probably a lot better than what they did, honestly.
Yeah, and again, doing something to help Mando's character because he's now having to have a relationship with this droid that, changes and grows and does all those things. Again, I felt like that's where we missed something in this season is I didn't feel there was any growth from Mando or Grogu. Like, even the finale where they're saying, like, I'm your, I'll be your father, I'm going to adopt you. I feel like they got to that point in their relationship at the end of last season, and it just took them a full season to be like, well, let's make it official. Like, but they already had that father-son relationship.
Right.
It didn't grow more this season. It just, okay, we're going to put a rubber stamp on it, which I like. I like that, he officially adopted him. I like that they're going to go off and do missions for the New Republic. Like, I'm totally on board with where we ended. It just felt like, they didn't earn the ending that we got.
With you bringing that up, it just made me think of like an episode. I don't remember, but early on in the season, episode 1 or 2, he goes into the waters that he needed to bathe in, like his whole quest to redeem himself. Yeah, it happened super early. And I just feel like throughout the season, as we're speaking about the growth for Din, it should have been him having the conflict of, yes, he needs to go into the waters. He needs to get to Mandalore. And also, how does he handle, or heavy is the head that wears the crown if he is holding on to the Darksaber? And how does that look when he's not part of this faction, but he's also like the de facto ruler of all of these people? How like, that's a lot of conflict for an individual to handle.
And definitely, like, we see that, he pledges himself to Bo-Katan, later in the season. And so, yeah, I agree with you. Like, we should have had him struggling with, this is an arbitrary rule that I can't take off my helmet to hang out with my buddy Grogu. Like, I'm not on board with this rule, but I'm also, this is what I was raised in, and struggling with that. And then maybe even rejecting it by the end, where he's like, I will take off my helmet, because then we'd get Pedro Pascal, which this is a full season of The Mandalorian where we didn't see Pedro Pascal's face, and I'm calling BS on that, because that man has a beautiful face and I want to see it.
We should have that more. You should have him take off his helmet again. Just randomly, I would take off my helmet here.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there was one thing I was going to add, and I can't remember. You all were talking about it, and I lost it. Right. I was going to ask, why does all Mandalorians like to, bathe in the waters where there's a giant creature that could eat them?
We'll talk about it.
Yeah. So they like to bathe near alligators and. Okay. Oh, what was that giant creature? Have they explained that before and that I missed in other lore?
The Mythosaur?
Yes.
The Mythosaur.
Like the one. Yeah. Yes. I mean, not really. There hasn't been a ton within the canon stuff about the Mythosaur. I feel like what's been revealed in The Mandalorian is pretty much just what we know, that, it's an ancient creature of Mandalore, and, their ancient culture used to ride them, and that's how they, I guess, conquered the planet or whatever. I don't know exactly. But it's now just an ancient kind of, this is a creature that we associate with our past, and, very mythical kind of thing. And I don't know. To me, that was another element that didn't necessarily pay off, where it was like, we kind of set that up as like, Bo-Katan, saw it, and then she didn't want to tell anybody about it, but then she immediately told the armor about it, and the armor was like, this is the way. And I'm like, do you know anything else? Like, can you say anything besides this is the way?
I don't know.
What
made me mad about setting up the Mythosaur, and I'm glad you said it. I forgot the name, but Aaron, I will tell you in Legends that there was a skeleton set of Mythosaur bones, but those ended up being fake bones, and it was used for an amusement park. So it's very fake little news. Information about the Mythosaur. But with the season, teasing the Mythosaur, seeing the Mythosaur, and then having monsters or giant, beasts show up throughout the entire season, to not have the Mythosaur show up physically, in a fight, did not pay off.
It was disappointing. I will say, when that monster, attacked the Mandalorians on their little pirate barge, at first I was like, is that the Mythosaur? And I was like, no, it's not. And I was like, is that a Zillo beast? And I was like, no, it's not a Zillo beast either. Like, I was like, it's just another random creature, which, again, like, the creature work on this show, like, they look amazing. They look awesome. The alligator, turtle thing looked amazing. The pterodactyl thing, like, they all look so cool. But again, like, they bring those little hatchlings back, and they're like, we found these 3 foundlings. I'm like, are they foundlings or are they food? Like, like, are you just gonna eat them? And they never show up again. That is another thing that it just feels like there's so many hanging threads that they do, and I'm like, is that so that you can just like, if you want to come back to that later? Like, I don't even like the space whales are clearly that was a setup for whatever's going to happen in Ahsoka because it ties back to Rebels. Like it was literally, I feel like they only had that little cockpit in that ship just so that Grogu could see the space whales. Like, and because then they immediately took it out. Like they set it up in Boba Fett, like, here's your little seat, Grogu, here's where you can sit. And then immediately they were like, actually, we took that out because we're going to put the droid back there. You could just sit with me in the cockpit. I was like, what are we doing? Like, there's so many weird and random choices. But I will say, I think that as we kind of wrap up, I think that this season and this show in particular, because I think I've never kind of loved it as much as some people do. I think that ultimately the way I feel about this season and this show is I'm frustrated because all of the pieces are here. Like, it's got great actors, it's got great characters, it's a great setting, the production value is high. Like, there's so many great things about this show. And I just feel like it doesn't always come together with the plot, with character choices, with, you know, just kind of keeping things on a consistent basis. It's just so uneven. And it just ultimately for me, it's just very frustrating because I want to love it. I want to be like, this is a great show that everyone that loves Star Wars can get into. And I don't feel that way. I feel like there are things that either don't make sense or that you have to have too much knowledge of backstory for, that they don't explain well. There's characters that kind of get lost or left behind, and you're like, why are they even here? What is their arc? And it's frustrating because, again, I love Star Wars and I want to love this show, and there is a lot to love about this show. The action this season was phenomenal. It was really good. You know, we got this whole plot with, you know, the Mandalorians and the covert versus, you know, this other faction and them kind of coming together. And even though, again, I thought that some of the execution of how they got there wasn't great, where we got to by the end, I was totally on board with. I really love, you know, the Mandalorians retaking Mandalore. I love Din and Grogu going off to do more adventures. I love, you know, kind of all of those pieces that they gave us. And I just feel frustrated because this show like should be, man, this was incredible. And for me, it's like, it was pretty good. It was, you know, there's some really great stuff, but it was very uneven for me. And ultimately, I think that's my takeaway for season 3 and for the show overall, is that I wish it was everything it has the potential to be. And I just end up feeling a little bit let down, which again, is just frustrating because I'm like, all the elements are there. You should be making an amazing show, and instead you're making a okay to good show.
And this is where I come back to something else with it. You have, let's face it, you have some amazing directors that are all part of this. You have like Jon Favreau, you have Robert Rodriguez, and a few others. You have
Rick
Jon Favreau,
Bryce Dallas Howard, you know, Dave Filoni, of course.
Oh yeah, Dave Filoni.
Yeah,
and you got, you know, Jon Favreau is, let's face it, he's taking point. He's the tip of the spear on this one. But I always come back to and wonder, is there something that Disney or someone else is like, you have to do it this way, you have to step in and do this, and is forcing these amazing directors and producers to go a certain route and be stuck in doing what they're doing? They still love it because they love this franchise, they love Star Wars, and they're there for their love of the genre. But it makes me wonder sometimes how many times these high up executives who are just sitting there trying to make money, how do they, oh, you gotta tell this because this is over here, so you got to fit this in somehow. And then you get the writers that are like, well, you know, I got to do this, I got to do that. No,
yeah, well, it really feels like the Din and Grogu reunion on Book of Boba Fett falls perfectly into that. It's like, you know, oh, we need to get them back together because by the time season 3 comes out, everybody loves Din and Grogu. They got to be together. We got to put them back together. That feels like something that it felt out of place in that show, and it feels unnatural with the journey of the characters.
And like you said, it comes back to that, I think, and that's where that fits perfectly, because it could be that they didn't think Boba Fett would have been strong enough on his own. They may have had lack of faith in it.
They were right.
I mean, they were.
Those are the two best episodes of that show. Is Mandalorian.
And then, like you said, I think when we did our review about it, they ended with them leaving. Nothing with Boba Fett. It was, hey, look, here's Mando and Grogu at the end of a Boba Fett show.
Yeah, that was the final shot. Was the two of them, and I'm like, is this a Boba Fett show, or is it like it makes no sense? Yeah.
It doesn't, and I feel like the Star Wars is starting to suffer from that, where too many hands are in the pot, and it's causing these directors and writers to have to go certain ways. I would love to see a show knowing that they're not involved. Like, nope, we left it to these guys.
I feel like we're not letting RJ talk, but I just had to say because of what you just said. So then RJ is going to go. But what you just said about, too many hands in the pot and Star Wars suffering from this. So this is how I feel, is that George Lucas and Dave Filoni, who is his right-hand man, they are idea men, and they have so many good ideas. Like, all of the ideas of this show are really like the Mandalorian, two cultures clashing, the rise of, the Empire being in the shadows while the New Republic is struggling. And, all of those pieces, the, lone wolf and cub story that is Mando and Grogu, like all of these ideas are really, really good. And I just feel like the same thing that George Lucas sometimes struggled with, which was the execution of those ideas, weaving them together to tell a singular story. That is where we falter. And I feel like that's
right.
A similar feeling that Dave Filoni has, whether you look at Clone Wars arcs, you look at Rebels, you look at this show, is like there's so many good elements and so many good ideas in these shows, but it just feels like sometimes they don't come together in a way that makes a lot of sense. And the payoff is almost always amazing. Like, again, the final couple episodes of this season were really, really good. I just felt like they didn't earn all of that payoff. They didn't do the work to make us care about all of those things. And so ultimately it kind of felt a little bit flat for me. But RJ, you gotta hop on this train and tell us what you're thinking.
Okay, so I agree with both of you guys' sentiments. I don't have like too much commentary because I agree. But about the season, about what you said about the season being earned, are the last two episodes for the conclusion. During the entire season, it was just meandering. It was middle of the road. It was nothing building up because those last two episodes was great Mandalorian and it was great Star Wars. But it wasn't the emotional gut punch that it needed to be because the season by itself was just a ebb and flow, peaks and valleys. And then with the episode with Lizzo and Jack Black, it was a very Disney episode. The whole area or the city that they were in looked like Epcot Center. And they were just like, look at how happy and inclusive Disney is right now. And
right.
And it just kind of took away from like the overall story that they tried to throw in there. But I like that episode. I always have a thing for mysteries. I love mysteries. Sure. I love investigations. Right. I think that episode, when it came to Bo-Katan and Din, it was great. And then the thing is, even in that episode and the problem with the season, they sidelined Grogu anyway.
It's a microcosm of the whole season, is they just said, Grogu, go hang out over there. Like, we don't need you on this mission. And it was just, no. And you mentioned the emotionality, and like that's what I'll compare this season to season 2, right? In season 2, we went on this journey with Din and Grogu where they were like, we are companions, but you have a purpose, and I've got to get you to where you need to go. And so we're working towards our parting while we're also growing closer together. And so by the time we get to that finale and he takes off his helmet to say goodbye to Grogu, we're all like, Grogu, don't go. Like, I know it's Luke Skywalker and I know he's awesome and you've got the Force, but we don't want you to leave. We don't want you to leave Din because we love the two of you together. And like, it was so emotional. And this season, the big emotional thing with the two of them is like, I will adopt him as my son. We didn't spend any time like building to that. Yeah. We just said, we're going to do it.
That's what I wanted to bring up, and I'm glad you brought that up, is that I love, like, I know that we differ in this, but I love season 1 and 2, like, unequivocally. Like, I think it's amazing television. This season 3 makes me hate the show. No, I'm joking.
He's turned to the dark side.
but I just seen the highs from season 2 and what it turned into for season 3. And with them removing I'm just gonna say this, that emotional twist of how Din Djarin was in Boba
Right.
Fett and how dark he was and went back to I could bring you in cold or I can bring you in warm. He wasn't that kind of guy. And it just seems like they were trying to Disneyfy him for season 3 when we could have seen the emotional anchor that Grogu was for him in this season while they were apart.
Absolutely. Like seeing him revert to, kind of like being that cold, calculated bounty hunter again because Grogu's not there. Like that would have been so great. And again, like that's what made season one and two strong. And yeah, I don't love them as much as you, but I really like season 1 and 2. And it's because it was a character driven show. Like there's a lot of plot going on, and there's a lot of cool things going on, and they're weaving in elements from all over the Star Wars universe. Bringing in Ahsoka, bringing in Luke Skywalker, like all these things. But it's a character driven show. It's about Din and Grogu and the character journeys that they're going on. And this season, it felt like we stopped caring about the character journey. We said, all right, we got them to the place we got them to. They're here, they're together, they're happy. So now we don't have to do their character stuff anymore. And now we can just do a plot. And it was like, that's not as interesting to me. I still think we needed that emotional journey and having them be apart for several episodes. Seeing, again, Grogu struggling to let go of Din and struggling with his Jedi training, Din struggling to be without Grogu and, reverting back to this cold, calculated, bounty hunter, and then having them come back together and recognizing, oh, actually, we do need one another. Like, this isn't just you need me to protect you or I need a father. This is like, no, we need each other because we balance each other. We help each other. We support one another. Like, and if they had done that, like, I think I would have loved this season because all the plot elements are cool. It's just I didn't care about the characters that were going through the plot. And it's just really, it lost it for me, unfortunately. I still think it's a good show. I just think it could be a great show.
Again, it comes down to, like I said, I wonder how many hands are in that pot. And I wonder, is Disney or is whoever's in charge of everything is like, you have, like, I think, like you said, RJ, oh, we got to explain all this stuff. We got to explain the clone Palpatine. We got to explain this. So put these little things in here, guys, and sprinkle it throughout the whole thing. And it's like, as a writer, you get stuck. You get that, screw it here, just whatever.
I really wish, because they've made everything canon now. Just explain all that stuff in the books, but leave the shows alone.
I would be okay with that.
Like, if you're a true, like, you want to read all the books because you want to know how Palpatine got back and got a new body, okay, go read it in a book. But like, don't muddy the Mandalorian with that stuff. I don't need it. I don't know.
So
but
were we? Oh, good.
We've been talking a while. You got one more thing? I was going to wrap this up. But
just want to see what y'all thought, because it'll lead to the wrap up. The end of it, we seen it. Like we said, Grogu's with him. He's back on. Looks like doing his bounty hunting stuff again. He's his own Mandalorian. He is the Mandalorian, I guess now. What do you think? Season 4 could bring something, or do you think it's going to just now be one of those shows that's kind of outlived its life, or do you think there's going to be more to tell here?
I think season 4 is going to mainly... I don't think Din and Grogu are going to be our main characters of season 4. I think they're going to pop in. I think we're going to see, episodes with them maybe, or like small adventures. But I think we are going to be focusing on the big Mandalorian plot with Bo-Katan and, the Shadow Council, trying to hit back at them after what happened in the finale. I really feel like the Din and Grogu storyline, like, again, what more is there to tell with these characters? Like, they're going to go off on adventures. They're going to help the New Republic. They'll bring in some, again, some of those elements like, oh, look, there's still something weird going on in the Outer Rim.
Yeah.
Maybe there's something going on over here. Look out for the Empire. And, the New Republic will be like, we don't believe it. Everything's fine. Like, I don't know. I feel like we are going to get another season, but I don't think it's going to focus on Din and Grogu. That's my feeling.
What about you, RJ?
I agree with Robert. I think moving forward, for whatever may happen, is they're focusing on this bigger story with Thrawn. and all the
because he got name dropped, right?
yeah, and the Ahsoka show. But if to move over into season 4 with him being on contract with the New Republic, I could see it planting seeds of, oh, this is the First Order situation over here, just like what they did similar to season 3. And he might find certain plot threads of a grander plot, but I don't really see where it could go, and I don't see the emotional weight for season 4. They could just still be building on the lore that they're trying to build for this new canon situation that they got going on with Disney.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious because I almost feel like for me as someone who's watched it, the show's almost ran its course. Again, I don't know all the other lores and stuff, so for me, this is like
this felt like a series wrap up.
Yeah,
episode.
If they stopped here, I'd be okay. I'd be like, okay, well, season 3 was kind of
season 3 was frustrating. Give me back my old show.
But we would get him probably sprinkled. I would know we'd get him in Ahsoka, probably. We'd get him in other little lores. Here's Grogu growing up more. Here's Mando. Even if it's like a year or two goes by and we get a little bit older Grogu to where, I'm sorry, I'm tired of the baby talk. He's 50 years old already. We know this. He's old. He's been around Mando for a minute hearing English.
I have to say, I was so in that finale when she was like, he's not old enough, he can't say anything. I was like, is he about to say this is the way in Grogu voice? And then he did.
They're not that creative, Robert.
It was like more baby babble, and I was like, come on.
Yeah, they're not that creative.
I was hoping for it to like, this is the way, or all of a sudden he just speaks perfect English, like
the way this is, and he just says it backwards for no reason. Nobody else talks that way. He just does the Yoda speak just for no reason.
My dad was Yoda, so
all right, well, let's wrap it up. We've been talking for a while about this season, this show, so let's just give ratings and then get on out of here. How did we feel? Like the overall rating, what would you give for this season? I'll go ahead and start. I'm gonna say it was like about a 6 out of 10. It's a slightly above average. It definitely had some really high moments that I really enjoyed. It ended on a good moment, but all the things that we've talked about, whether it be the character or the plot stuff that just was kind of uneven, didn't work for me. Those few castings that really pulled me out of a couple episodes definitely brought it down. And and again, I like most of the elements here. I just don't think they come together to make a great meal, if you will. It's like, the steak was good, but it didn't pair well with whatever wine you gave me. It's like the wine is good, the steak is good, but together not so much.
Yeah.
So slightly above average. I'll give it a 6 out of 10.
Okay, well, we're gonna end on RJ, so let me throw mine out there real quick. I think I give it about where you're at, about like 5.5, 6, depending what episode it is for me too, because some of them kind of go a little bit deep, like worse. Again, I liked those espionage, like me and RJ were saying. I love espionage. I love those secrets. I love trying to find out the clues with the character, and I love it.
Scooby-Doo villain in
pretty much
Christopher
Lloyd, pretty much. I mean, that's what he did in Roger Rabbit, so I mean, why not? And I like those little things. And those were episodes where could have been home runs, except like you guys said, you have Jack Black, you have Christopher Lloyd that kind of bring it back. Lizzo kind of bringing it to like, okay, where are you going to do your over the top part? Because that's what you do. Oh, there's Lloyd's. Okay, now I'm taken out. And those episodes could have been making this series, maybe a little bit higher than average for me. But stuff like that brought it down. But I love those espionage episodes. I love those last 2 episodes. We get all the Mandos fighting. Like, also have to say, it did look kind of like Moonraker, James Bond film with all the Mandalorian people fighting in the background. So I mean, there were cute things, but again, this show felt weak this season. So I would recommend binging it if you're gonna watch it. If you haven't watched any of it, you watched like an episode or 2, just watch it all now at this point because it'll come off better. But what about you, sir?
I agree. The grade that I give it is a 6, 6 out of 10 because it's. Not only that it's Star Wars, because Star Wars has been garbage from time to time, but because it had nice elements to it to give it a passing grade.
Yeah.
And I think
70 is still passing.
Yes, barely, but it passed. But I do feel like I did lose my train of thought. Oh, there was a lot of stupid decisions made by a lot of characters. When that alligator turtle showed up, like, why didn't they just fly away? You could just leave the area. You could have just got out of there. But they wanted to keep fighting.
Yeah, even when the kid gets taken by the pterodactyl, and they're like, "Oh, this happens all the time," and we just give up.
Yeah, you right.
No, just one time.
Her whole ship went there to the location, and then she decided to turn back around. I was like, what is going on? You're there. You can save the kid.
The kid's just standing there waving like, hey, I'll be back. You're right there.
Yeah, so noticing these things brings it to a 6 because they had enough in there to save the show. So I agree with you guys. But I didn't like the season overall.
Yeah, I think it's clear for all three of us this is the weakest season of the show. And again, that doesn't mean that I didn't like it, because I still think there were a lot of things to like, a lot of elements to like, but it just was overall, it was disappointing, a little bit frustrating at times. And hopefully, I think the next show live action we're going to get is Ahsoka. The trailer dropped for that. It looks awesome. I love all the characters of Rebels, so I'm very excited to be getting back into that world. And I'm super excited. I hope it's great. I will be rooting for it to be great. I thought Andor was great. RJ doesn't agree with me. That's okay. We still like his stuff. RJ, tell us about where everyone can find your bad opinions on Andor.
Hey, this is like the Spider-Man thing all over again with me.
You can find me at the NerdyBrew talking about real good Star Wars. That's where you can find me. Being accurate in my opinions is at the NerdyBrew. That's where you can find me.
Oh man. Well, I guess Aaron, just take us out. We're ready to go, man.
All right, guys. Thank you again for sticking out with us through this whole thing. I mean, we've been talking for, like you said, Robert, a long time about Mandalorian, but this was to cover the whole season because we didn't do episode by episode. We decided to wait for this. Definitely check out everything that we are doing at Official GYGO on Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, etc. And until the next time, guys, I'm Aaron. That's our special guest, RJ. That's Robert. Stay geeky and get your geek on, guys.
Bye.